What's going on? I'm Marcus. You're at the channel, The Debt Free Dad, where we are talking finances. You already know what it is. Hey, I wanted to do a live video today because I've actually did something that is the first time I do it. Now, before I dive in about this conversation I had with the only millionaire in my family, I am going to give a caveat. I'm pretty sure this family member's son is in millionaire status too, and if you're a family member out there and you out in millionaire status, it's not because I'm not showing you no love. I can only speak for the individuals who I knew, who I grew up around with. So it is what it is. But I'm going to talk about the first money conversation I had with the first multi-millionaire in my family. I learned a lot of lessons. It was interesting. It was dope. It was a conversation that I probably should have had a long time ago, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about because that's a problem in and of itself. But before we dive in, I'm always going to give a caveat for those pesky bar guys. I'm a licensed attorney, not your attorney, not legal or financial advice. Just letting y'all know what's going on in the household of the debt-free dad. Hey, I appreciate you tuning in, sis. And so, I just wanted to just kind of chop it up. So let me give a little bit of background first. The first thing that I realized after I had this conversation was this should have been a conversation that I had a long time ago. Now, I can't speak for every household. I can speak for, my household in general. I can speak for how I think, not all, but I think some African Americans households work. Okay. This family member is an aunt, and everybody generally generations above me, they kind of on the same. If you just observing as a child, that's all you got as a youngster. Everybody was kind of on the equal playing field, so to speak. You know what I mean? Everybody had a house in their family, but this particular aunt and her family, this aunt and uncle, you could just tell from looking that they were on a higher level than everyone else. What's going on, brother? I thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate you. And so, they were clearly on a higher level than everyone else. They were the ones who they had the best home, the best room in their home was the attic. Like for me as a kid, I was like, man, I've been in my attic. If you step in the wrong place in my attic, you're gonna fall through the damn ceiling. So, it kind of put it in perspective. They also had like a beach house and all sorts of other neat stuff. I mean, full basketball court in the yard. I mean, just so much great stuff. I used to love going over their house because I just felt like I was at a vacation resort, right? And so, I mean, the first thing that I thought about when I had this conversation was that, you know, this conversation should have been a conversation I had a lot sooner. I tell you, a part of it was, me, I was just not really even thinking about it from a finance standpoint. Like where my mind is now is nowhere where it was. So I probably wouldn't even have been just mentally to have that conversation. I was more enamored with the things that they had outside of the real tangible assets as opposed to how they actually accumulated the things they have. So that was a me thing. The second thing is and how can I say this and not offend nobody? I'm probably not going to offend anybody because I know ain't nobody from my house family watching this shit anyway. I know ain't nobody from my household watching this anyway, but I kind of feel like I was just having this conversation with my wife. If not all the time, but if a collective group in a family, let's say person A, B, C, D, and E, have a view and opinion about person Z, right? And that opinion about person Z is something to the effect of they think they know everything, they think they're better than someone else. It's a strong possibility that person Z is probably the person who is thriving financially more than everybody else in your family who assuming one of those alphabets A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of them. And so it is wild. There's this unwritten, you know, I want to say like, I don't know if it's a competition, but you would think when you see someone in your family doing well, the conversation would be like, damn, hey, how did you get there? Tell me, what are you doing? Or give me some jewels in this particular subject area. But that's really the opposite of the conversation. I mean, really, hey, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. That's really the opposite conversation. The conversation, if you got that one person who is doing well financially in the family, the conversation is very rarely, just from my experience, oh man, let me go talk to this person to see how they did it or what they're doing. I don't think people had those conversations. I feel like most times the conversation is everybody talking about how that individual think they're better than everybody else. It's crazy, but that's what it is. And it's funny because as I got older, when you're young, you don't really have the mental skill set to delineate these type of things, finances and such. But as I got older, what I realized was, oh, I could clearly see and identify that this family member is doing better than everyone else. This family member has reached a finance level that, you know, it's something that people dream to attain, right? But, one of the things is it's not that that person thinks that they're better than anyone else or that they know everything. That's just a perception of how other people see them, because a lot of time, a lot of other people or other family members may be actually jealous of what that person has, or the resources that that person has or that they command. So I think just from a, one thing that I realized is like, damn, when somebody in your family eating, that should be celebrated, and that should be something that's discussed so people could figure out how to make those moves. But what I've saw in this example, with my family, and what I think I see a lot of times, and just other families that I've know where this thing happened, is that person attains a certain financial status and everybody just kind of like, oh, they bougie, or they think they're this, or they think they're that. People are like either too ashamed, too embarrassed, don't want to ask a person for help. And I tell you one thing that I realized: when people are doing well at something, when people are doing well at anything, when people are doing well at something, people always wants to talk about, people who are doing good at something, they like to talk about how they got there. So you'll be amazed at the amount of information that they're sharing. But a lot of times people are just too sensitive. People don't want to talk on it. People will project an image of this person who's successful that's not even a true image. So it gets kind of crazy when you think about it. You know what I mean? Mm, right. Well, everybody gotta deal with, certain situations. I think the biggest thing is you gotta respect the hustle that people went through, the journey that people went through to get to whatever their destination is. And just because you didn't reach that destination, you can't be angry or upset, like, oh, I didn't attain this level, so I'm gonna have some animosity towards this person. My dad came from a poor family, handout causing problems. My mom complained about it. Yeah. Yeah. That happens. I mean, it happens a lot. I think historically families, and some families do it from some cultures, but I can tell you, I can only speak for, the families that I've seen and the ones who look like me. Oftentimes it's something that's not celebrated as it should be, and those lessons aren't passed on as they should be. So let me tell you all a little bit about my auntie or whatever. My auntie, she used to be the vice president of a big time real estate company. We'll just leave it at that. Vice president of a big time real estate company. So they had a lot of assets. We were talking the other day, and she was like, at one point they had like six houses that they own, and I'm talking about six houses, like paid for houses. so, it's kind of interesting. But there was some, cool lessons that I kind of learned from them. And I think the first thing was, when we talked about it, whatever your number is, and I said this on the channel before, but this was dope coming from somebody who, and when I say they are millionaires, I don't think they millionaires to the extent of, oh man, they got like $1 million or $2 million. Like, nah, I'm sure they pretty good up there. But the first thing that they talked about and said to me was never focus on what your numbers are, because your numbers don't determine your level of reduce stress or being comfortable, which is a big thing because a lot of people, and she told me I had a lot of friends who were way more successful than me, but they have a lot more stress because they took on a lot more risk. So I think that first thing that they talked about is they weren't able to attain anything until they actually were able to understand, like, hey, we can't be paying everybody back with this interest. We can't have all these credit cards. We can't have all these car notes. So for the longest, they kind of operated under the extent of, hey, we're not going to use credit cards. If we get a car, we're just going to save and pay for it cash. And that's just kind of what it was. Now, I will tell you, of course, they had great jobs. They worked long in their careers. They became experts in their fields. Both my aunt and uncle had great jobs, but it was interesting to see that fundamental principle of reducing your risk and not taking on too much debt was one of the things that they identified as just the foundation. The other thing that I thought was interesting was they told me that they've had money conversations with their children since their children were probably 5 or 6. My cousins, they was like, yeah, we would just sit down and talk to them about money. And when we would go over our budget, we would just sit down and explain to them what a budget was. And I think that's another dope concept. I think that's another dope concept because, a lot of people don't talk about money. I actually was just looking at this article and it talked about, let me pull up this article here. This article, 47% of families have money conversations at least once a week because of the pandemic. Now, this is an article I found from 2001, and that 47% of families having money conversations was like the highest it's been in a decade. And it didn't come from having money conversations. It's two types of money conversations you're going to have. You're going to have money conversations because things are going okay and we're working towards building on what we have, or you're going to have those good time money conversations. And if you don't know what a good time money conversation is, a good time money conversation is a conversation that has to happen because some shit just happened. James lost his job. Somebody got laid off. Somebody got injured. There's an unexpected hospital bill. So 47% of people, this is up the highest it's been in 10 years. 47% of families are having conversations about money. But in 2021, those conversations started because of some type of financial turmoil, whether it was a job loss, whether it was, somebody getting sick and acquiring extra medical bills. So the fact that they started their family, their kids out young, involved in the conversations was something that I thought was dope because, as they explained this to me, all I saw was the contrast of what they're explaining and just kind of what I experienced. And like I said, I'm just going to, keep it a buck. Nothing against my parents. My parents weren't, they didn't have some of the financial savviness, some of the financial education, but we never had like really money conversations. I literally can't remember one time where we sat down as a family unit and had a conversation about money ever, even if it was something bad. And I know there's been times where like my pops maybe got laid off or something. We didn't have no conversations about that. That was a mom and dad conversation. Hey, just try to protect and shield the kids. And it's something that, I've actually been in that situation where, I lost my job. And the first thing I did was have a conversation with my kids like, hey, just so y'all know, hey, this is what happened. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. We got a little bit of emergency fund. We're going to be all right. But we are going to have to cut back on some things. We are going to have to get rid of. And you would be amazed kids can comprehend and understand. But the second point that I took away was they started having those money conversations with their families early on, which was, just, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was dope that they've been having conversations with their kids since their kids were like 5 and 7, just about basic fundamental concepts of money. Um, the second thing that they talked about, because we talked a little bit about retirement and, when is a good time to retire, they were really never proponents of early retirement, even though they probably could have retired a long time ago. You know what I mean? They probably could have retired a long ass time ago because maybe they had the money to do it. Yeah. That's good not to have contact. Sometimes and I'm just looking at this comment here, you know, and sometimes getting rid of shady people in your circle, no matter if they have a familiar relationship, is the best thing to do. I actually left a comment on someone's live today, and I was talking about a situation where I loaned the cousin some money. It was actually a wild story too. Like, I loaned a cousin some money for something because, like, I'm a sucker where somebody be like, "Oh, I got to do this with the child," and it was like a little baby, so I felt really bad. So I was like, "Oh, here, go ahead." I loaned them the money, and of course, I never got the money back. And that didn't even bother me. Like, it's two things. Like, if I loan you something and you don't pay it back, I really don't care. I would rather you just be like, "Hey, that money you owe me, I just ain't got it, dog. But whenever I get it, I got you," as opposed to try to circumvent. But of course, they never paid it back. And what made me even more irate was, I never forget, they never paid it back. But like the next time I saw this particular family member, they like smelled like the strongest marijuana you could ever smell. I was extremely pissed. That money I paid or loaned out was a small price to pay to identify somebody who I need to remove from my circle. So shout out for you for now no longer hearing from that person and putting that person on the outside. I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of times we think family aren't necessarily people who are to you by blood, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I got a lot of friends who are family, and I got a lot of families who acquaintances. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? But that's just kind of what it is. But yeah, yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. And so that, I talked to them about retirement, and I asked them, I was like, well, like, why didn't y'all retire early? Because they got to a point, and this is a goal. I think this should be the goal. If you're in a household with two incomes, if you can ultimately get to this point, you can achieve. And I don't care what your income is. I don't care if one person makes 20,000, the other person makes 40,000. But if you have a two income household and you can get to a point where you're living off of the income of one individual, and the other check is just investments and savings. Like, once you get to that point, I feel like you reached the pinnacle of. I feel like you're going to be able to maximize it, and so they actually had reached that point where they were able to survive solely off of one income. The other spouse's income was solely being invested and put into savings, and so I asked. I was like, damn, like, they were at a point where they could have retired. I mean, I'm sure they had some M's in the bank, but they didn't want to retire too early because one of the things that they said was they knew in their career fields the most money that they were going to ever make was probably from the age of 40 to about 57. So they was like, we're not going to put ourselves outside of the workforce when we can maximize and make the most money. And so I thought that was interesting because a lot of times, everybody talk about financial independence, retire early, retire early. Like me, I'm just telling you, even if I could retire at 45, I'm not retiring at 45. What the hell am I gonna do? Like, it's I'm talking about retire. Like, if you retire and you those all the time, I don't count that as retirement. That's just my interpretation. But you got to go online and day trade and move stocks and do all of that shit. I don't want to do that. I'm talking about unequivocal retiring where I don't got to do anything but go to the gym and enjoy my wife and see how the kids doing because they're gonna be grown and they're gonna hopefully be on their own and that freeloading off of me. And so, but that was one thing they said. They didn't want to retire early because they knew from that age of 40 to 57 that was a 17, that was a 17-year period where they were going to make the most money that they could make in their career field, and they thought it would have been foolish to walk away. Now, what happened when 57 came? When 57 came, they was like, hey, we actually could have retired early, but by that time, they had so much experience in their field, and they ascended to a certain level within their organizations and a certain level of institutional knowledge where the work that they were doing wasn't hard work. It wasn't stressful work. And so that's another thing. I'm telling you, that stressful. I'm not going. Long as my job isn't stressful and I enjoy what I'm doing, I'm not going to retire. You're going to have to take me out in a gurney. I'm gonna be at my desk forever. And so, that was one of the other things that they said that was also interesting. What's going on, brother? Thanks for tuning in, man. Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair because I told them about a scenario I saw where I don't know how it's done, and it was funny because they did this. I know a couple where the husband is retired, but the wife isn't retired. Now I tell you, for me, that don't even make sense. I don't know. I just can't wrap my mind. Either we got to walk away together, or in the alternative, like especially if I had a job that made more money, but it was interesting because they was like, my uncle was like, nah, I actually retired first, and the reason he retired first is because his wife enjoyed what she was doing. But that was a situation where they both could have stopped doing absolutely anything and would have made enough money to live the exact same life. So I look at that scenario a little bit different, as opposed to when you got a couple and person A retires, but we still need the salary of person B. If we still need the salary of person B, why the hell is person A retired? I can't wrap my mind around that. Like, there's no way if I'm going to retire from my job, like, I finished my half of the financial freedom, honey. I walk away from my job. My damn wife's still working, and we need her income to maintain our lifestyle. Like, to me, I just think that's kind of a goofy thing, but to each their own. But that was something that they said, in this situation, husband retired early, wife just kept working because she wanted to. And like she said at that point, she was such a subject matter expert, and the bag was so easy to attain. There were really no need for her there was really no need for her quit doing what she was doing. So she worked an extra 2 or 3 years after her husband retired. So that was another thing that I thought was, just interesting. They maximized those years where they can make the most money. They really weren't pressed about retiring early, because to them, just because you retire early, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily happy or content with being in retirement. So if you can work, you aren't stressed out, you enjoy what you do. And they gave me a ratio. They said if you got a 70-30 ratio on your job, with 70% of the time you, and 30% of the time it sucks ass, they said that's a pretty good ratio. And I would agree. I think that's a pretty good ratio. So, that's something that is, I think, the Tom Brady. The right. That's funny. But I think that's something that's interesting. I mean, I'm just going through, checking out some of the comments. Yeah, all y'all who be swinging through here watching these videos, especially the people who was watching them first videos. Oh man, I went through and watched some of my first few videos. I was like, how the hell was y'all watching that? It was pretty terrible. It was pretty terrible. But I think the other thing that I learned from that conversation is, you know, whatever your dollar amount goal is, they say, like, if your goal is to become a millionaire, you have net worth. Once you get your $1 million net worth, if you just do the same thing that you were doing to get that, you're gonna double that in probably a quarter of the time that it took you to actually attain that. And that was something that was interesting, but it also makes sense. I mean, one, you got a bunch of money working for you if you got it invested in the market or in property. So I think that's a true statement. But it kind of goes back to their earlier point. They were like, don't really get caught up in the numbers, because for years, they was like, for years, even though they were doing well, they never really sat down and looked at their net worth, because they were like, I don't really care what my net worth is. All of my bills are paid. I got a little something over here just in case catastrophe happen. Like, what more do I need? Why do I got to check my net worth every quarter if I know I'm doing the same consistent behavior that's going to get me wherever I need to be? So I thought that was something. Got to start YouTube somewhere. Nah, dog, I got this one video I watched. You know how some people got the lights in the background? I tried to put a red light in the background. The whole damn video was pink, man. It looked like I looked like a nice Cameron rap video. After I saw that pink ass video, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave this pink shit up because I'm not filming this. So it was terrible. I'm gonna do a video one day on how terrible my videos used to be, just to go ahead and get it out there. But the other thing that I got, just in having that conversation from him is I don't know. Like there's clearly a wealth gap when you look at households just based on race, which is a whole nother conversation. But there's a look at it between whites, you look at it between Latino and African Americans. But the things we need to do to kind of close that wealth gap, I feel like just from a household standpoint, a lot of people don't take the time and effort to do those things. A lot of things is just acquiring knowledge. And I said this once when I was watching my guy, Demetrio Mountain, is a difference between knowledge and education to me. I think education is, I know a lot of educated people who dumb as hell, common sense. Like I'm talking about some of the smartest people who could go on Jeopardy, and I literally could watch Jeopardy and was just sit there and answer every questions. But sometimes you got to have the people skills, you got to have the common sense, you got to have the logical reasoning and deductive skills, you got to be able to answer those questions, interact with others, work collaboratively. That's what knowledge is to me. You know what I mean? So I look at education and knowledge different. And so a lot of the times we rush to get an education because I don't know, somebody told us we should get an education. So we rush to the university, we rush to get the degrees, we rush to get all of this student loan debt. And we get all of that, but we missed all of the knowledge that we should have got in the basic fundamentals of finance, the basic fundamentals of, I don't even call it the basic fundamentals. I think it's the basic fundamentals of running a household. If you got a household, you got to know what the hell is going in and what's coming out, right? Ain't that's like 101? I don't know. I feel like that's point number one, but those are some of the things that we just didn't get. I know. I'm hoping to get to that point soon, but I think that's a true bill. I don't even know where I'm at because I haven't looked at my net worth all year. So like I haven't looked at it. I think I was like 66, 69% of the way there at last December. I just don't want to look right now because I know the stock market is kind of crazy. So I just refuse to look. But yeah, hey, PhDs, JDs, people with advanced degrees are some of the most non-common sense having people that you'll probably ever meet. But yeah, it's a clear difference between knowledge and education. And we're so focused on getting the education because society told us we were supposed to have it. We just actually forgot about the basic fundamental knowledge of how to run a household. And so that was one of the other things that they pointed out. A sign on that dishwasher at work that says did not open. Okay. Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, like this is how having a sign on the dishwasher, and I know somebody who in here probably could, if anybody here were in the military, they can understand. Yeah, familiar with what a claymore mine is, but essentially it's a mine and you put it in the ground and point it towards the enemy, you hit a button, and all of these like BBs shoot out and fuck up the enemy. The enemy's all jacked up. And when you go through basic, you got your claymore mine. Is a sign on the front that says point towards enemy. And I was like, why they got to put that on there? And the drill sergeant explained it to us. He was like, we had to put that sign on there because a lot of soldiers was setting the claymore mines up backwards. And when the enemy would attack, they would hit the button to make the claymore go off. They was killing all themselves. Isn't that terrible? But it goes to the point of sometimes you have to break things down to the lowest just so people can get it and get what's going on. I know. Hey, y'all keep on. I'm glad y'all all giving me these positive vibes because I can't wait till I hit that threshold. It's going to be quite interesting. One of the things that they talked about though that I thought was interesting is one of the things they always spent money on. They were like, no matter what position we were in, we always spent money on vacations. And I was like, like that's interesting. Why? And then when they explained it to me, it actually made perfect sense. They were like, even when we were starting out, if we just went on a vacation to a that was terrible, or if we went on a vacation to, as we acquired a little bit more, we went to Hawaii or we did something to that effect. They were like, but early on, they had a situation that was, kind of a health scare. And one thing that they didn't want to do was work so hard to acquire, a certain financial status, but deprive themselves and their kids of memories of times together. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, I think the biggest thing was most of the vacations that they had early on. It was like you don't got to spend a lot of money. Like it's people who spend thousands of dollars to send their kids to Disney World and Disneyland at 5 or 6 years old. Your kids don't give a damn about that stuff. Like they were like, your kids really don't give a damn about that stuff. You can rent you can go camping and put a shelter half up in a tent with your kids and roast some marshmallows, play some stupid games, and they will have just as much fun and it would be a much more memorable moment. So, the point of that, I think, was you got to focus on your finances. You can't just be out spending frivolously, ending up in debt. We all understand that. But they were never a proponent of we're gonna just go like hardcore Dave Ramsey. We're not doing shit until we pay off this or do that. They said, hey, we kind of balanced it out. We focused on doing what we had to do, but we always took a couple dollars, a little bit, even if it was $1,000 at the end of the year we had. We would find a way to do something so the family could have those memories. Because they said the last thing they wanted to happen was something happened to somebody in their family and someone in the family is no longer there. And then what ultimately happens, or the last 2 years was just a rat race to try to get out of debt or try to change your financial position. And you really didn't have any good family opportunities, any really good memories of doing things just kind of outside of the house. And I thought that was dope. Y'all know I thought that was dope considering, I had to go to ICU for a couple of weeks in 2020. So that kind of really made a lot of sense to me when they went through that point. Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right now. So I think we with advanced degrees aren't the sharpest. I feel like y'all was trying to say something on the low. Nah, it's all good. But I second that. I second that. I think that's a true bill. I think people with advanced degrees, people in general aren't the sharpest, but an advanced degree doesn't preclude you from being stupid. A doctor with no sense. Well, yeah, that's true. I got a partner who's a tax specialist, and he tells me all the time. He was like, professionals are the worst. He said professionals typically have the worst financial situation. He said if he lined up all of his clients who were teachers and all of his clients who were doctors and lawyers, all of the teachers, dollar for dollar, live better because they are much better planners and budgeters of money than all of the professionals. So, I don't know. I think that's because, professionals, especially when you're a doctor, you got so much money coming in so fast. I think you got so much money coming in so fast, you just kind of like, I could go ahead and blow it on this because I got new money coming in. So it's not really that big of a deal. Yep, I agree. Experiences are definitely dope. Nah, yeah, going camping is dope though. I remember once, like, I went camping when I was a youngster, and we just went like literally in the backyard. It wasn't no place special. We went in the backyard. I don't know if I would go camping in the backyard now. I might have to take my pistol with me. It's a little wild out here, but they definitely were very big on the memories and doing stuff to get those memories with your family. Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. It's always something that it's always something that well, I'm not gonna say always, but a lot of the times is always an event that triggers you to realize like Yeah, I got to make more time to do things with my family just for the purposes of developing memories. And I don't know if anybody is like me, but this is just me personally as a guy. I honestly don't really care about going places. I don't care about going places. If my birthday come, I don't want to go anywhere. I like stuff. I'm a stuff type of person. If my birthday come up, oh, wow, you got me a new motorcycle jacket. Cool. I like stuff and I like to eat. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she's a memory person. I cannot give her nothing but take her somewhere so she can remember this place I took her. And that's just kind of how she is. So I feel like I don't know if this is true across the board, but I tell you, if it wasn't for my wife, I probably would I might go on one trip, I don't know, every couple of years. But my wife not having that shit, if I actually did that, I would probably be getting a divorce. But she's the one who really facilitates the traveling and events. I never really been a fan of it. Anytime I go somewhere after about 3 or 4 days, I want to come home. So, that's just me. I'm kind of boring. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, the sinking funds are good to have, and nothing is better than I remember the days of paying for vacations and putting it on a credit card, and I'm like, man, I'm paying for this vacation for a whole year. I paid for that 4 day vacation. It'd be someplace not even extravagant too. I'm paying for that 4 day vacation. It took me a whole year to pay it off because I didn't save up the money earlier. So now, like, we got actual vacation we're going on December of next year that we're actually paying on now. And like the only way I'm pissed if like the world came to a catastrophic end, even though I guess everybody would be upset, but because nobody would be here. But that's the only thing that could really piss me off. But we have a vacation that we've planning, going through a travel agent, which is my wife, of course. But we're actually making the payments on the deposit and everything, and it's not until December of 2023 because I never want to give up a big ass, large ass sum of money all at once. You know what I mean? I just That's just something that I'm not about that life. That's nothing that I'm actually going to do. Yeah. Groceries suck. That's pretty terrible as well. Groceries always suck. But it was an interesting conversation I had with him. It was a conversation I probably should have had sooner. Part of it was my fault because even when I kind of got the mindset, when I actually started to take into consideration, like, okay, let me do some shit to change my financial trajectory in this direction. This sounds crazy, and this is a me thing. It's not a them thing. Like, I felt like they were just so high up on a level, like I can't really talk to them about this yet. You know what I mean? Because that's just kind of how I viewed them. I knew they were really successful. I knew they were really smart, and I was like, I felt like let me get a little bit of my ducks in a row and get my education and knowledge game up. And that was so true. I probably could have asked them whatever the hell I wanted anytime I wanted. But again, a lot of times we have these insecurities on ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't a insecurity like, oh, I think they're gonna do what my position was. It was just something where like I was like, oh man, they got their stuff together. Let me make sure I at least got this, and this before I go talk to them because I don't want to look like a goofy. Because that's one of the things when you start talking to people about how they built wealth, um, how they did it, what did they do, it's going to require a certain amount of disclosure on your part. So you got to be comfortable with making that disclosure because when you pass the point, if I'm already worth $10 million, it's nothing for me to tell you, hey, at one point I was broke because $10 million. Now, when I'm broke as hell and I'm talking to somebody who worth $10 million, people get a little uncomfortable being like, hey man, I'm broke as hell, but I want to get where you are. How did you do it? Because there's sometimes to have a real conversation with somebody that you trust, it requires you to have a little bit of disclosure, a little bit of candor, a little bit of forthcomingness about your situation. So, sometimes, and that was me. I just was like, nah, I don't feel like my situation is where it need to be because they on this high level and I need to kind of get here to talk to them. And again, that wasn't a them thing. That was a me thing because I was just kind of being goofy. You know what I mean? And it is interesting. I didn't even put it up, but yeah. Yeah, yeah, you learn through trial and error. That's I tell you, my very first jury trial, I messed up and like I don't know. They asked a question and I was supposed to object to do something, and I just didn't do it because my client was talking to me. He was getting on my nerves, and afterwards, I was like, "Damn, I messed up." And I was like, "I messed up on this, this, and this." And I remember another attorney told me he was like, "Hey, unfortunately, we learn off the backs of our clients. And that mistake I made in that first trial, it was a mistake that I never made again. So a lot of times you got to take some bruises to learn some things. It was interesting. I don't know if y'all saw the poll that I put up, but I put a poll up, and the poll was, asking if you have any millionaires in your family. None. I'm the first. It was all of these options. Let me see if I could pull it up real quick because I want y'all to look at the results of this poll. I saw this poll and I put this question up, and I thought to myself, I said, this is interesting. And 9% of the people who is the first generation millionaire in their family. Like I saw that number probably went up, but I saw it was 9% of the people. And I thought, damn, that was dope. Okay, so yeah, here you go. I got it. I'm gonna pull this up right now so we could take a look at this. I thought this was an interesting poll to put up. So yeah, I thought this was an interesting poll to pull up because a lot of people and most people are in the situation where I think a lot of us are. That's something that we're aspiring to be, that first millionaire in the family. Hey, shout out to the 5% of the people who, hey, you that first generation millionaire in your family. Like that's dope, and it's mad funny because I like watching videos of people who like they'll go on YouTube and be like, "I'm a millionaire," and then like 6 months later, it'll be like 6 months after being a millionaire, and they be like, "I don't feel no different." Nobody ever feel the same different because they all doing the same habits that kind of got them there in the first place. But shout out to the 5 people who are the first generation millionaires in their family. Hey, shout out to the 7 people who got a few in their family. I may have some more. I can only speak for the relatives who, I really grew up around, who I had some familiarity with. I'm sure I got a I'm sure I got a family member somewhere in like Buffalo or something who probably worth, some M's. But, I can only speak to the family members who were in close proximity. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We do got to have those conversations with our kids. It's just such a thin line to walk between like I don't know, like between teaching your kids to be responsible and giving them what you didn't have, but not really spoiling them. I feel like for me, that's always the constant struggle. You know what I mean? And maybe everyone feel like that. Maybe I'm sure it could just. My parents probably thought I was ungrateful with some things. I think my kids are ungrateful. They probably gonna think that their kids are ungrateful for some things. So that might just be the circle of life. I don't know. Is that the circle of life? Is it just me? That may be the circle of life. But I feel like sometimes I'm like, damn, y'all ungrateful back. Y'all ungrateful little kids. I worked hard to help y'all so y'all can have this experience to do this. And so that's one of the struggles for me is I want them to have more than what I had, but I don't want to spoil them. But I want them to, I don't want to completely deprive them of getting some of the bumps and bruises through their own experiences and through making bad decisions. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's one of the things that I really struggle with. I'm assuming that I'm doing it right. We'll see. If I'm not doing it right, my kids grow up to be knuckleheads. It's all good. Like I said, I'm gonna donate everything to my school and the National Pit Bull Association of America. That's all good. But that was really kind of how the conversation went that I had with them. And it's funny because I was telling my wife, I was like, growing up, like, hey, just this is what it is. I'm gonna tell you. In my family, growing up, my aunt and uncle were the individuals who everybody kind of was like, oh, they think they better than everybody else, and they think they know so much, or they think they're smarter than everybody. And as I got older, what I realized is that wasn't a problem for my aunt and uncle. That was insecurities of other family members because they didn't reach a level financially that they had. You know what I mean? When I sit down and talk with them, they were probably one of the most cool, collective, non-judgmental group of people, two individuals to talk to about money. But I think it was just that perception, and I think that's how it is because people laugh. Like I call myself a minimalist, right? In certain terms, but it's all in perception. Like I put another poll up, and I thought it was an interesting poll. It was let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna scroll down to it. It was actually about the cost of vehicles that people had. Right, let's go right here. This question right here, and I think this goes to the point of perception because minimalism is a perception. This question: how many months of household income would it take you to pay for your car at the time you purchased it? Right, and so, like I got a really nice looking car, but it's old as fuck. My car old as hell, right? But that's the benefit of having an old, nice car. When people look at it, they can't tell how old it is. Nobody need the car know that my car is almost 20 years old. That's the car I wanted because it looked nice. But when I looked at this poll, it was interesting because I mean 1 to 3 months, 20%. The numbers were relatively close. 3 to 6 months, 27%. More than 12 months, 23%. And so let's see that question. If you purchase a vehicle and the price of your vehicle is more than 12 months worth of your salary, like to me, that's an investment. That's not even an investment. That's a purchase that I'm just not in a position to make. I just can't like how I look at things when it comes to money. When how I look at things when it comes to money is how long will it take me to pay for this? Like I can remember my very first job. I wanted to buy some shoes and I made like $6 an hour, and the shoes were like $200 an hour. And of course, I worked hard to save up the money and bought the shoes. But when I thought about the hours it took, I was like, man, that's a lot of damn hours. But minimalism is a thing that's kind of based on perspective. If you are a minimalist and you make a household income of $60,000, but someone else makes a household income of $30,000, you could be a minimalist, but in their eyes, you aren't a minimalist. And there, your nice Honda Accord, your nice C class Mercedes that's probably 20 years old that you probably got and paid less than what they paid for their car, but you just won't be viewed that way. So I think, and I bring that point up to say that, I felt like the way my aunt and uncle were viewed by family members were really based on insecurities that family members had. You know what I mean? When I sat down and talk to them. Like I said, they were the most coolest people who kept it real. You could tell them what your situation was, and they aren't going to judge you for it. They're going to give you some real game, give you some real advice. This comes to the real estate stuff because that was really their area of expertise. So, here I am, an old ass guy, gray hair, 40 plus years old. And this is the first time I actually sat down and had a conversation with the individuals in my family who I know unequivocally are multimillionaires. And it took me to this age, over 40, to actually sit down and do it. That's kind of crazy and insane. So if you actually got a person in your family who, I looked at that poll, if you got a millionaire in your family and you feel like you're comfortable enough to talk with them, even if you don't feel comfortable, sometimes just initiate the conversation. You don't got to disclose everything. You can build a bridge and learn a lot from that. Don't wait 30 plus years, 20 something years like I did to have a conversation. I'm sure they probably could have gave me some gems, especially on the real estate side. They could have saved me a lot of damn headaches and a lot of money. But I know now they're two people that I'm going to go to when I'm making certain decisions because I want to know what their thoughts are, especially when it comes to things like real estate, land, because that was kind of their area of expertise. So, hey, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Yeah, man, it was those bacons, man. How you? it was those air bacons, man. I bought them just. Them just was like $200, man. I paid extra because what was the name of the store where it was school where this store only hired like beautiful women and they upcharged like 20% on all their merchandise. But I wanted to look cool. So I say plus the extra 20% more than what the shoes actually cost just to buy them from this store because this store had like all the beautiful women. And I probably was like in 10th or 11th grade. So yeah, it was the Ed Bacons. You called me. I actually just got to. I'm on this thing now where I'm going back buying all the shoes in high school that I liked. And I actually bought them and I actually paid less for them than what I paid back in the day. That was what, 97, 95? Hey man, don't judge me, man. It was those Ed Bacon. So them Gary Payton gloves is going to be next on my list. Hey, I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. Y'all make sure y'all tune in tomorrow. It's going to be a good video. I'm going to talk a little bit about getting my reaction to Tiffany Haddish, her lawsuit, this wild ass unfunny skit. I'm going to talk a little bit about her legal exposure. She shit. I mean, intentional infliction, emotional distress, battery. I mean, it's just a plethora of things. But I think the more important conversation is that we got to have is the mother of these children who took compensation to let their child participate in something that they had no clue what it was. So y'all make sure y'all tune in tomorrow. I'm gonna break that down. I appreciate y'all tuning in. was that this place? It wasn't Shoe City, man. It was over there on the strip. They used to be by the record store. They used to be back there. I can't think of what the name of that spot was. I can't think of the name of that spot, but yeah, I paid $20 just so I could look cool because they had all the nice looking sisters who worked there, and I was like a teacher with a bunch of acne, and none of them was gonna give me their number anyway. But that's it. Y'all take care. I'm getting to the point where this video about to break down and it's about to go left field. Y'all have a good one. Peace.